NASA says its Voyager 1 probe, the most distant human-made object in the universe, is sending usable information to Earth again.
A faint signal brushed against the edge of deep space static, so subtle that it almost folded back into the endless hum of cosmic noise. For a moment, it seemed like nothing unusual, just another whisper from the void. But then it pulsed, clean, sharp, unmistakably intentional. Voyager, drifting farther than any human-made object had ever traveled, caught something moving in the blackness. It wasn't a planet, it wasn't a comet, it wasn't debris. It was something else. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. What began as a minor anomaly turned into a moment of profound scientific unease. Voyager's instruments, though old and weathered by decades of cosmic exposure, still possessed their remarkable sensitivity. The spacecraft had long stopped returning crisp, high-resolution data, but it could still listen. When the signal first appeared, the timing was so precise it seemed more like the ticking of a clock than a product of interstellar chaos. But clocks aren't found drifting between the stars, not ones built by nature at least. Mission analysts on Earth initially suspected a glitch. Voyager's hardware was ancient, practically museum material by modern standards, and it had suffered countless radiation hits, system degradations, and power cuts. But the signal repeated, it didn't fade. It didn't change into the usual scatter of interstellar interference. Instead, it tracked across space as though emanating from something moving with purpose. The spacecraft wasn't designed to hunt for such a phenomenon, yet it had stumbled into a mystery far older and deeper than its creators imagined. The frequency of the detection darted in a narrow band, almost too narrow for a naturally occurring source. Natural cosmic phenomena produce sprawling waves of electromagnetic energy, messy and raw. This one moved like a thread pulled tight across the dark. The signature was faint but consistent, hinting at a structure or object far too small and too distant to reflect light in any conventional sense. Yet the motion was unmistakable. Something was gliding through a region of space so empty that even dust rarely bothered to gather. The first implication struck with unexpected force. If it wasn't a planet and it wasn't a known category of object, then it belonged to a realm unexplored. Space is overwhelmingly silent, but silence has texture, and this disturbance was the kind that shouldn't be able to hide within it. It moved with a fluidity that contradicted gravitational expectations, suggesting it wasn't simply falling towards something or drifting away from something else. It was navigating. Voyager's position gave it a vantage point unlike anything closer to the Sun. The spacecraft had crossed the heliopause years earlier, pushing into the interstellar medium where particles thin out into nearly nothing. In that sparse environment, even the subtlest motions stand out, and the faintest emissions travel, unchallenged. Whatever Voyager detected was operating within that emptiness, where its presence shouldn't have been able to blend in unnoticed. The vastness of interstellar space became less empty, more textured, simply because one aging spacecraft happened to listen at the right moment. The analysis team noticed something else. The movement of the source wasn't linear. It curved, paused, then continued as though adjusting its path. Natural objects rarely exhibit behavior that looks like hesitation. Comets sling along predictable arcs. Rogue asteroids travel straight until a gravitational mass redirects them. Dust clouds drift with the current of galactic winds. But this signal seemed to briefly stop, hold, and then shift direction. It behaved as if reacting to something unseen. That single detail reshaped the entire conversation. To react means to sense. To sense means to process. And to process implies a degree of complexity that no known interstellar object should possess. Speculation ignited quickly but quietly. Nothing spread to the public. Nothing leaked beyond the controlled internal discussion. What Voyager found was too delicate to misinterpret, too monumental to rush. The team focused on rational explanations. One hypothesis suggested a previously unknown type of interstellar particle concentration, perhaps forming temporary electromagnetic cohesion. Another proposed that the spacecraft had intercepted a rare instance of cosmic lensing, where gravity reshapes distant emissions into something seemingly coherent. but both theories struggled against the pattern of deliberate movement. Every time the source shifted, the signal's qualities changed with a harmony that looked less like a random natural fluctuation and more like modulation. That idea brought a chilling realization. Modulation is usually a product of design. The behavior didn't match the classic hallmarks of communication, yet it also refused to settle back into the comfort of natural randomness. It existed in a liminal state, like something caught between meaning and accident. Further examination revealed that the source moved at a velocity too slow for a free-drifting object, but too controlled to be tumbling. If it had been a rogue asteroid or a fragment of some ancient collision, Voyager's instruments would have captured rotational shifts, tiny fluctuations as the object spun through the void. But the motion remained smooth, steady, almost intentional. Distance estimates placed it far beyond Voyager's immediate vicinity, possibly several billion kilometers away, but the exact location proved difficult to pinpoint. This uncertainty only deepened the tension. An object that could move so steadily while emitting such a clean signal would be either exceptionally dense or extraordinarily well-engineered. And if it was well-engineered, the questions expanded into territory humanity had never approached with evidence. Was it a relic drifting from another star system? A fragment of technology so old that it had lost its primary function and now wandered the darkness with a leftover rhythm? Or was it active, observing, measuring, responding to forces invisible to Voyager? The idea of interstellar technology had always hovered at the fringes of scientific theory. The galaxy is ancient. If technological life arises easily enough, the cosmos should contain remnants, machines, probes, derelicts, scattered like cosmic fossils. Yet finding one would require extraordinary luck, considering the mind-bending scale of space. The odds were low enough to dismiss casually, but Voyager's detection suggested that the improbable might have just brushed past the edge of possibility. Even so, the team approached the data with disciplined skepticism. They considered the effect of cosmic rays striking Voyager's receivers. They reconstructed the patterns frame by frame, stripping out noise, recalibrating for drift, adjusting for the spacecraft's own motion. Still, the anomaly persisted. The team noticed a subtle timing relationship between the pulses. They weren't evenly spaced. Instead, they followed a cascading pattern that repeated across long intervals. It resembled a spiral, like something mapping an invisible field or scanning a region for changes. This interpretation opened yet another possibility. The source might be interacting with its surroundings rather than simply existing within them. A natural object couldn't meaningfully scan its environment, but a device, no matter how ancient, could. The scientists pulled historical mission logs, comparing the signal to older anomalies detected by Voyager decades earlier. Some patterns bore faint similarities, once dismissed as random interference. But within the context of this new discovery, those fragments looked less like noise and more like pieces of a much larger, much older puzzle. Perhaps Voyager had glimpsed this phenomenon before, repeatedly only lacking the data to assemble it. The implications swept into every field touching astronomy, physics, and the search for life. If the moving object proved to be some form of long-range probe or artificial construct, it would radically reshape humanity's expectations for the galaxy. It wouldn't mean a nearby civilization, it wouldn't guarantee communication, it might not even represent intelligence in any current sense, but it would confirm that somewhere, sometime, someone or something crafted an object capable of surviving the interstellar void long enough to pass within Voyager's sensory reach. That alone would be enough to redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. Even the conservative interpretations carried weight. Suppose the object was a new category of interstellar phenomenon, one that behaved with startling precision but remained entirely natural. That would mean the universe holds physics and structures still unknown, waiting silently in the reaches between the stars. Discoveries like that have historically rewritten scientific understanding as profoundly as any technological revelation. Just as quasars and neutron stars once mystified astronomers, this object could belong to a class of cosmic structures humanity had never considered. Months of analysis continued, layering models upon models, refining interpretations. The movement of the source still resisted any classification tied to gravitational predictions. Its trajectory suggested a path chosen rather than dictated, and spacecraft don't choose paths unless someone instructs them to, even if that someone lived long before humans understood spaceflight. The research team mapped out every known interstellar object that had been cataloged near Voyager's region of space. None matched the signal. The object was neither large enough to gravitationally influence Voyager nor reflective enough to be detected through traditional imaging. Whatever it was, it excelled at invisibility, unless listening for it in the precise way Voyager happened to be listening. The deeper the scientists delved, the more unsettling the symmetry became. The pulses exhibited a pattern that grew more refined the longer the signal was tracked. It was as though the object was adjusting its output, compensating for Voyager's movement, or aligning with some distant point. No natural phenomenon should behave with such real-time adaptability. One theory, seldom spoken aloud, suggested that the object might not be drifting at all. It might be following Voyager. If that were true, it meant the object had detected the spacecraft first. It meant Voyager, carrying its golden record, a message from humanity, had unknowingly caught the attention of something roaming the interstellar dark. The idea that a spacecraft launched from Earth nearly half a century ago could summon a response from an unknown source pulled scientific reasoning into territory where intuition faltered. Voyager had no propulsion left to maneuver. It couldn't approach or dodge. It could only drift deeper into the void, carrying its instruments like a lantern in the darkness, illuminating slivers of a cosmic terrain humanity had barely begun to chart. The idea that something else might drift nearby, too small or too distant to see, yet active enough to respond, redefined the very notion of solitude in space. Every scrap of data hinted at a profound relationship between the signal and Voyager's position. Whenever the spacecraft's orientation changed slightly due to solar wind pressure or internal realignments, the pulses shifted, not dramatically, but enough to notice, enough to wonder. The implications of detection are one thing. The implications of awareness are another entirely. Scientists revisited classic theories about self-replicating probes, ancient galactic monitoring systems, or interstellar sensors designed to watch for emerging civilizations. Such concepts had long existed in the realm of speculation. Yet once speculation gains even a hint of empirical support, it transforms into legitimate scientific inquiry. Voyager's unexpected visitor offered that moment, a bridge between theory and discovery. The object's silence, its refusal to transmit recognizable communication, became almost louder than the signal itself. If it were simply malfunctioning, its emissions would be chaotic. If it were broadcasting, they would show intentional structure. Instead, the object behaved like something watching, evaluating, or perhaps simply drifting with a residual program it had been following for eons. The broader implications stretched far beyond the detection itself. Humanity suddenly faced the possibility that space is not merely vast and empty, but threaded with movement so subtle that only the most fortunate alignment of circumstances could reveal it. Voyager, by sheer chance, had become the eye that glimpsed something crossing that thread. The event forced a re-evaluation of what it means to search for life. For decades, the focus had been on planets, atmospheres, habitable zones, and signals resembling deliberate messages. But this discovery suggested that not all signs of intelligence, or even advanced cosmic phenomena, would look anything like human expectations. Some would be ancient, drifting, silent. Some would be active but unreadable. Some might exist in forms that defy straightforward interpretation. Voyager's encounter hinted that the universe could teeter with hidden architectures, secrets woven through its darkness like fine filaments. The discovery carried the weight of a realization humanity had never truly reckoned with. If advanced objects roam the interstellar medium, civilization may not be a rarity. Instead, the relics of civilizations might be the most abundant signs available, far more common than contact, far more likely than communication. This idea shifted the philosophical foundation underlying the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Perhaps the cosmos was never meant to reveal its inhabitants directly. Perhaps instead, it scattered clues, devices, fragments, patterns, waiting to be discovered by any species curious enough to leave its cradle and listen. The object's motion remained steady, its faint signature pulsing with a rhythm that defied easy categorization. It moved with neither urgency nor aimlessness. It drifted without drifting. It signaled without signaling. It existed in a realm between known and unknown, refusing to collapse into either. Voyager's detection inspired a new line of scientific inquiry, refocusing attention on the interstellar medium as more than a silent expanse. Researchers speculated about regions where structures might accumulate, protected from stellar radiation or gravitational disturbances. They imagined networks of ancient devices mapping the galaxy, relics of a time when life elsewhere might have expanded far beyond its home star. Or perhaps these objects were part of natural processes just beginning to be understood, a kind of interstellar ecosystem with components that moved, pulsed, and shifted in ways that mimicked intention. The farther Voyager drifted, the clearer the signal remained. It followed with patience. The object's presence became a companion of sorts, a distant awareness in the void. It neither approached nor retreated. Instead, it maintained a respectful distance, as though abiding by rules humanity couldn't decipher. The idea that something was out there, not chaotic, not dead, but moving with purpose, reshaped the emotional landscape of deep space exploration. Voyager had always been humanity's message in a bottle, cast into a sea without expectation of reply. Yet now, in the coldest, darkest waters of the galaxy, the bottle had drifted near something else. The signal marked a turning point. It redefined the role of Voyager from a lonely traveler into a witness of something profoundly significant. It expanded the boundary of human discovery beyond stars, planets, and cosmic radiation into a deeper, stranger realm, one where movement in the darkness could hold meaning. Voyager's journey had already reshaped humanity's understanding of the solar system. Now, even at the edge of its functionality, it illuminated a truth far larger. The galaxy is not silent, not still, and not empty. Something else moves out there, gliding through the interstellar night, carrying secrets older and broader than anything humanity has imagined. And Voyager, drifting farther from home with every passing second, continues to listen. The signal continued to glide across the edge of detectability, a slender thread stretching through the darkness, leading Voyager deeper into questions humanity had never expected to face. As analysts tracked its evolving pattern, they discovered that the object's behavior subtly shifted depending on Voyager's position relative to the galactic magnetic field. The pulses grew slightly sharper when the spacecraft drifted through certain regions, as though the object responded not to Voyager itself, but to the environmental changes in the space surrounding it. This brought a new layer of interpretation. Perhaps the object was navigating along invisible lines woven through the galaxy. Magnetic fields saturate the interstellar medium like delicate, sprawling skeletons. They guide cosmic rays, shape dust clouds, and whisper their influence across unimaginable distances. Yet few objects, not even most spacecraft, can interact with them in ways noticeable from afar. That something small, faint, and distant could align itself with these fields hinted at a form of engineering or natural physics that exceeded current understanding. It suggested an ability to read the hidden architecture of space not through brute force, but through harmony, gliding along contours invisible to human eyes. This possibility reframed the object's movements. What had appeared as purposeful redirection could instead be a reaction to changes in magnetic pressure or interstellar wind currents, meaning the object wasn't choosing paths in the way a living intelligence might, but following cues embedded in the fabric of space itself. Such behavior could indicate a design philosophy far more subtle than anything humans had achieved, one based on cooperation with the environment rather than overcoming it. The science team questioned whether the object might be part of a natural but highly complex interstellar phenomenon, perhaps a magnetic filament studded with dense clusters capable of emitting coherent signals, or a sliver of ionized material moving along a field line in a manner never observed at close range. but natural structures rarely maintain consistent modulation over long periods. They fluctuate, they degrade, they dissipate. This object did none of those things. The fidelity of its emission remained steady, its shifts deliberate and timely, its presence neither weakening nor drifting into chaos. As the frequency pattern matured over weeks, researchers noticed that every pulse carried microscopic variations, tiny irregularities that, when graphed across time, created a waveform resembling a slow oscillation. The oscillation didn't match any known cosmic source. It wasn't the breathing of a pulsar or the resonance of a rotating magnetic anomaly. Instead, it looked like the signature of something cycling through phases, as though its internal processes ebbed and flowed in a controlled rhythm. This led to a new hypothesis. The object might be regulating itself. Perhaps it conserved energy. Perhaps it adjusted to environmental stress. Or perhaps it operated on cycles meant to sustain it across the enormous stretches of interstellar time. If it had been drifting for thousands or millions of years, such cycles would be essential. Machines, even the most advanced, require systems that adapt to decay or changing conditions. A self-regulating cycle implied that the object was not just functional, but enduring, something meant to persist long past the existence of its makers. The next breakthrough arrived unexpectedly, hidden in a minor fluctuation in the background noise. A second signal appeared, fainter than the first, almost swallowed by cosmic radiation. At first, it seemed like a reflection or an echo, a ghostly byproduct of Voyager's movement or the interstellar medium's shifting density. But the signal repeated with a different cadence. It carried a slightly higher frequency, and unlike the original, it behaved as though it were stationary. This discovery broadened the scope of the mystery. If the first object was mobile and the second was not, they might belong to entirely different categories. The stationary signal lacked modulation, but pulsed at an interval so regular it bordered on unnatural precision. The stability of its rhythm rivaled atomic clocks. Nothing drifting in the interstellar medium should demonstrate that level of consistency, without external control. The team considered whether it could be a remnant of a long-expired star, a compact fragment, or exotic object capable of releasing faint periodic emissions. But such structures typically produce far stronger output. The fact that this second signal hovered at the edge of detection implied it was either extremely small, incredibly distant, or deliberately quiet. The existence of two anomalies raised the possibility that these phenomena were more common than previously imagined, simply too faint to detect without extraordinary luck. Voyager, positioned in a unique region of space, might have wandered into an area where faint interstellar structures gathered, remnants of ancient processes or artifacts left to drift unnoticed. If these objects belong to a broader category, whether natural or artificial, they might be scattered throughout the galaxy, silently threading their presence through the void. The second signal did not interact with the first. Neither altered its rhythm in response to the other, though both exhibited subtle changes tied to Voyager's movement. This suggested a shared sensitivity rather than direct communication, like two devices reacting to the same environmental stimulus while remaining autonomous. If they were devices of some kind, perhaps they served different purposes, one mobile, one anchored. The anchored one, if indeed fixed in place, might act as a relay, a marker, a beacon, or even a decayed remnant of something once more active. As researchers modeled these possibilities, they realized that the stationary signal's timing aligned almost perfectly with expected distortions caused by Voyager's increasing distance from the Sun. The signal slightly shifted when Voyager crossed regions with differing particle densities. But unlike the mobile object, it did not change direction or vary its placement. It remained stubbornly fixed in the same corner of the sky, as though locked into a coordinate humanity couldn't yet interpret. While the mobile object introduced the idea of movement, intention, or adaptation, the stationary source invoked the concept of structure. Two entirely different behaviors emanating from the same region of space suggested a network, or at least a system, operating at a scale far beyond human capability. Whether natural or engineered, it presented a level of sophistication woven into the very fabric of interstellar space. Another observation deepened the intrigue. When plotted three-dimensionally, the paths of the two signals intersected at a point far beyond Voyager's location, as though both objects were connected to a region deeper in the galaxy. The mobile object drifted along a line that, when extended, passed through the same distant coordinate. The stationary signal pointed directly toward it. This alignment wasn't perfect, but it fell close enough to be more than coincidence. This coordinate became the focus of intense analysis. It lay in a direction unassociated with any known nebula, cluster, or stellar remnant. It didn't correspond to any gravitational anomaly, nor did it contain any source of radio noise. It was a quiet stretch of interstellar emptiness, unless something invisible resided there. Invisible structures in space are not unprecedented. Dark matter remains the universe's dominant mass, unseen yet influential. Black holes remain cloaked until their gravity betrays them. But an invisible structure that emits coherent, rhythmic signals is another matter entirely. Some researchers propose that the coordinate could mark the origin point of the objects, perhaps a central hub or node from which multiple entities had dispersed over time. If these objects were remnants of an ancient network, they might orbit a central location no longer active or perhaps operating on principles humanity has not yet discovered. The idea of a galaxy threaded with dormant or slow-moving artifacts posed a profound question. How much of cosmic history remains hidden simply because humanity lacks the perspective to perceive it? The timing of the mobile object's pulses grew slightly faster as Voyager drifted further. This acceleration was subtle but measurable, the difference accumulating over time like sand gathering into a dune. It did not correlate with the object's velocity or direction, but with Voyager's increasing proximity to a different region of the interstellar medium. It might have been reacting to a shift in electromagnetic conditions, or it might have been responding to Voyager's alignment with the stationary signal relative to the distant coordinate. The scientists struggled to determine whether this behavior was autonomous or reactive. It seemed to straddle the boundary between programmed response and environmental sensitivity. If the object was engineered, it could be built to react to certain cosmic cues. If it was natural, it represented a category of matter or structure not yet observed elsewhere. As theories accumulated, the philosophical implications intensified. If the objects were artificial, they implied a maker, one capable of deploying devices that could survive interstellar timescales. The age of such constructs could stretch millions, perhaps billions of years into the past. Civilizations could rise and vanish while their artifacts continued drifting, performing tasks long forgotten. Humanity might have discovered not contemporary neighbors but echoes, long-enduring traces of beings who once shaped the galaxy. Conversely, if the objects represented natural but complex phenomena, then the universe still held regions and behaviors too intricate for current understanding. That possibility was equally profound. It suggested that the cosmos might be built from layers of structure and function far subtler than expected, with mechanisms humming quietly in the background of galactic evolution. Voyager remained the silent witness to it all, drifting without the ability to adjust course or alter its fate. Its role as observer became more critical than ever. The spacecraft wasn't designed to interpret such mysteries, yet it carried the capacity to detect them, revealing a cosmos more complex than anticipated. Data continued streaming back to Earth, though faint and increasingly sparse. Engineers worried that Voyager's instruments might degrade further before more information could be gathered. But every transmission contained new nuances. Tiny shifts in the pulses, small distortions in the interstellar static, faint ripples running through the magnetic field surrounding the spacecraft. Each fragment provided another clue, another layer to unravel. The discovery inspired renewed interest in interstellar exploration. If objects like these existed throughout the galaxy, modern missions could be designed to search for them intentionally. The next generation of probes might carry far more advanced sensors, capable of mapping faint emissions or tracking subtle movements through deep space. Humanity's perspective on exploration shifted from simply observing stars and planets to studying the dark spaces between them, where silent structures might drift unnoticed. The notion that the interstellar medium held secrets became a driving force in scientific circles. New theoretical frameworks emerged, models describing potential ecosystems of interstellar structures, networks of ancient devices, or natural constructs formed through long-forgotten cosmic processes. These theories branched like living trees, each leading to new possibilities about the nature of the galaxy. Voyager's discovery fostered the idea that space was not merely a void sprinkled with celestial bodies, but a tapestry containing hidden patterns. Those patterns might include constructs that moved, hovered, and emitted signals, some active, some dormant, some drifting slowly across the galactic expanse. The mobile object's presence hinted at a dynamic environment shaping itself in response to forces too subtle for earlier instruments to detect. The stationary signal suggested foundations or anchors embedded in deep space. The distant coordinate implied a larger architecture connecting them. And Voyager, alone in the darkness, captured the first faint echo of a cosmic structure far older and stranger than anything envisioned. As the signals evolved, researchers began to sense that Voyager had not just discovered isolated anomalies. It had stumbled into the faint outlines of something vast, something distributed, deliberate, and waiting to be understood. The darkness between the stars no longer seemed empty. It shimmered with invisible motion, quiet signals, and the promise of deeper revelation. Voyager's lonely journey had become the first thread in a tapestry humanity was only beginning to see. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are thoughts on Voyager? Catching something moving in space, not a planet, predictions? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.